Those are expressions. Mama breast is just like this. The mama said they useless. As the mama they useless. You plan your mama they useless. Cause you not to now.
So good morning once again, and thanks for joining in. My friends from Ethiopia, DRC, Cameroon, and other places, and to my brothers and sisters in Nigeria, I welcome you all to this webinar. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah, we are hearing you.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
All right. Thanks for the feedback. My name is Samson Emelike. This is a Havron webinar. Havron e-learning hub is an organization that has vested interest in promoting upskilling in diverse forms, particularly online. And as our custom is, we usually will throw out upskilling webinars like this. So this is one of them, and we are going to look at introduction to pivot tables. I am believing that this is not going to be the only session for pivot table. This is going to give us an introduction to a lot of things we'll be doing with pivot table as time permits us. So for today, this webinar is just going to last for 1 hour, and we will just look at the pivot table broadly. What can we do with pivot table? How do we use pivot table to do what we want to do? And it's particularly useful for those who handle data and very large data for that matter. And as our tutorials are always fashioned in line with real life situations, we are going to be using scenarios that mimic what we do at workplace. So today we'll be looking at the supply chain parameters. Some of us are not in supply chain. There are other times that we will use facility data. So maybe in our next session, we'll consider using other data that can also speak and appeal to other professionals who will be joining us and who are not either in the medical field or even in supply chain. But for today, we are going to be looking at supply chain indices, just a few of them. And we are going to take a simulated scenario. And this is, we are seeing a situation where a company wants to procure some commodities, and it's going to assess some suppliers based on certain parameters. And so over 100 suppliers applied for the job. And at the end of the first preliminary selection process, 15 emerged successful. Okay, so based on the assessment that were done on over 100 suppliers that applied, 15 of them came out successful. Now, there is another next round of selection process that the organization will use certain other parameters to judge. Here we have the lead time, the mean lead time, the mean processing error, mean order fee rates, mean transportation costs, and what the company considers as freight burden. And this freight burden is expressed as the proportion of the freight costs to the other costs. So the company will want to see if a supplier is charging $1 to supply an order worth $50. So the freight burden is going to be what is the cost of the burden proportionate to the order, and that is to be 1 over the order. Okay, so that's what we'll be looking at. This is what the company wants to use and judge the 100 suppliers, the 15 suppliers that eventually came up. Now, the other things that were provided, the suppliers have provided all the documents, and this document for the supplies they made between January 2017 and September 2020. And from these documents, the procurement team extracted the various data shown on our data, our suppliers data sheet. We are going to the Excel sheet in a moment to see how the data is presented. Now, the company that is giving out the contract has stated that those that will be awarded this contract are those whose mean lead time is less or equal to 60 days. Then mean processing error. Sorry, can we unmute our mics, please? We are getting a sound. Thank you from the other side.
All the brown cats move on ground now. Where you have some cats.
Okay, so I think I'll have to mute everybody from this end. So I'm sorry, I've muted everyone, and nobody may be able to unmute until it's permitted. I'm sorry about that, so that we can have less distractions. Okay, so these are the selection criteria. One, the mean lead time should be less than or equal to 60 days. The mean processing error should be less or equal to 10%. The order fee rate should be greater or equal to 90%. And then the freight burden should be less or equal to 2%. And then right below here, we will use this maybe in a later session to depict this on a chart or a dashboard to depict the trend. So we are going to be looking at each supplier. How did they fare? What's the trend in each of these parameters over this period, January 2017 to September 2020? That's about roughly 40 to 45 months or thereabouts. All right, so let's go straight into the data sheet that we have. So this is what we have now. On this sheet are the data that we extracted based on those parameters for each of the suppliers. So here, okay, let me just freeze. Let's get this frozen at this point. All right, so you will see that these are the various companies. This is for Alpha, and that's between January 2017 up to September 2020. And then these are for Delta, Gamma company, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the procurement committee, because they want to do some level of analysis using pivot table, they presented it in this format here, which is the consolidated data sheet for each of these suppliers. Okay. So this is where our review for today begins. Pivot table is a feature in Excel that you can use to analyze large data. So we are going to see how we will bring in the pivot table. We will show, explain the various components, the key components, and then we'll begin to use them. And as we begin to use them, the features that we use, we will explain them and then see how they can help us to speed up our analysis. Now, when you look at your Excel spreadsheets, over here, these are the commands. So over here on the ribbon, I have my insert here. So I'm going ahead to click this insert, and then it brings out these other sub menus here. At the left end here is a pivot table, which is what we are interested in. So I'm going ahead to click it, and then this pops up. You will also see that around this table, I have dashed lines. So what Excel does is, because I clicked inside this table and clicked insert and pivot table, so Excel is already predicting that possibly this is the table I'm interested in using for the pivot table. You will see that these are the dashed lines. So I'm scrolling down to be sure that it has covered all the data of interest to us. Okay, so it has covered it all. We check this side. It has covered it also. So when we are sure that the selection that the Excel has predicted or suggested is correct, we will now go ahead to look at the other parameters or other options on this create pivot table wizard. So we are good to go. Assuming that this is not what we wanted, we could just go ahead and select another table. Say maybe my table is here. You can see I am selecting something else. So it's accepting it. So if there is a table here, it will go ahead and accept it. So but because my table that I'm looking for is here and it has rightly suggested or guessed, I could say yes. Okay, so I'm going to escape so that we can start all over again. Escape. Now, I think I don't need this. Let me delete this. Great. Now, see what could also happen if I had clicked outside a table and then gone ahead to click insert pivot table. There is no selection because there is no table. I didn't see those dashed lines around this table because I did not, where this cursor is, this was the selection before I clicked insert pivot table. There was nothing like table there that you could see, and so it didn't get anything. So again, I'm going to escape. I'm going to click inside this table, and I'm going ahead to click insert and pivot table. Again, you see these dashed lines around my table. So once you are sure that you have selected the right table, you can see this table is a very long one. This is it has over 400, over 500, over 600. It's about 669 entries. So I can go ahead and click OK. But before I do that, over here, where do you choose to drop your pivot table? For learners, those who do not have firm grip and understanding of pivot table, it's always advisable to drop it on a new worksheet. It's always good to drop it on a new worksheet. But those who understand the workings of pivot table, they can choose the existing worksheets. And then they know how to avoid errors and complications that are associated when you use existing worksheet rather. So I'm going ahead to choose this new worksheet. And the moment I click OK, already here, I have only 2 sheets open. It's going to create a new worksheet, just like we indicated here. So I'm going ahead to click this, and then this comes up. For convenience sake, I'm going to rename this supply chain management key performance indicators pivot table. So I'm going to, in short form of pivot table, I will use PVT. Okay, so this is how the pivot table is. And you will see that this is selected, the pivot table is selected. And once it's selected, there are a few things you need to note. Number one, you have created a new environment in this worksheet. There are 2 environments. There is this pivot table environment. And so when you want to work on pivot table environment, these are the options you have. See here, this is my pivot table field. And then up here, you will see pivot table analyze, pivot table design. So under each of these, you will see the different sub menus. Here is the pivot table analyze. With time, we are going to be discussing the slicers, the timeline, how to refresh, and so on and so forth. Now, the second environment is the Excel sheet itself, this spreadsheet here. This spreadsheet here, you will see that over here, the pivot table analyze and design is not here. And then the panel here is not visible anymore. The reason is I clicked outside this pivot table. So telling Excel that I want to work in the spreadsheet environment, not on the pivot table environment. If I want to work on the pivot table environment, I will click here. So clicking on the pivot table will automatically bring this up and then show over here the pivot table analyze and design. So these are the 2 environments that you'll be working with once you insert your pivot table. Again, pivot table, we can rename it. So over here, I can rename this as a supply chain KPI pivot table 1. So what do I need to do? I can come over here, click this pivot table analyze. At the extreme left here is the pivot table 2. So I'm going ahead to click it to rename it. And of course, we know that in naming protocol, there are certain rules. For instance, I wouldn't have space. I wouldn't have dash, but I can use underscore. So what I'm going to do is, this is SCM underscore KPI underscore pivot table 1. I enter. So it has accepted that. Okay. Now, pivot table can help us. I'm going to list out some of the things that we can use pivot table to do. We can use pivot table to count occurrences. We can use pivot table to sum values. Want to sum up our values. We can use pivot table to find averages. We can use it to do other calculations. Okay, so I'll be showing us some of these things as we proceed. So now let's look at counting occurrences. For instance, now, how many times, or we can say for each of these suppliers, how many records did they present? Because we asked them to submit documents covering January 2017 to September 2020. So we want to see how many times, how many records did each of them submit? Did every one of them submit the exact number of months? If we check January 2017 to December 2017 is 12 months. Okay, so let's say 12 months. Then for 2018 is another 12 months. Then for another 2020, sorry, this is 2017, 2018, 2019 is this. And then in 2020, we have 9 months. Okay, so let's see the total that we have here. This is 45. So we want to find out how many of these companies submitted up to 45 supply orders or documents covering 45 supplies. Because we believe that a very good company every month it should be making supplies to organizations. So they looked in their archive, all the supplies made in January 2017, combined them together and submitted. So this is what they submitted to us, which is what we are analyzing. So the question could be, the question that we are interested in finding out now is, how many times did each of these companies submit data? So we are counting occurrences. That is one. Before we delve into that, I'll just likely want to tell us, you may have noticed that these numbers are changing. Yes, I didn't want to use fixed numbers, so I randomly generated numbers for 2 reasons. Number one, it was quicker for me to generate this data. All these random numbers here, I generated them in less than 1 minute for all these 690 records. Okay, so that is one reason why I did that. And another reason why I did that again is I'm going to show us, if you get your data on this pivot table and then your data is being updated maybe every month or quarterly or yearly, and you still want to use that same data, how do you command Excel to update the record that you have generated using pivot table so that you can get a fresh and updated data from this pool here? So you will discover that I'm going to press F9, my function 9, and you will see that these numbers will be changing. So I'm pressing that now. You can see that the numbers are changing. So, and each time it changes, new values are generated, which means anything we have done here, we need to refresh so that we can pick up a very current data. So these are the 2 reasons why I use this run between function to generate these numbers. All right, so let's go back here. Another thing that pivot table can help us to do while we are going to look at the counting occurrences is that it can help you to identify unique entries. So we see that we have over 600 and about 669 entries here. So how many companies actually submitted this their report in this our pool here? So what we need to do is we come over here. This is our pivot table field, and it's a floating panel. I can drag it out here, take it to anywhere. Assuming you are doing something on this point and you want to see what is happening here, you can click and drag this. So when you bring it back here again, it's fixed into, okay, it ought to be here now. Okay, so this is how this is. It's a floating panel. You can take it to wherever you want to take it to. Now, on these pivot table fields, we have this. This is our header. You will notice that these are all what we have on our header here. So we have on column A, we have suppliers. On column B, we have the lead time and so on and so forth. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 headers. So on our pivot table, it's the same thing that we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, we have this filter here. We have these columns. We have the rows, and then we have the value fields. These are all the different fields on pivot table. Now, by default, you know that each of these columns contain values. The values can be text, it can be numbers. So let's look at this point here. They are all numbers apart from suppliers. So the supplier here is text, whereas the rest here are numbers. You can also see the period here, which is date. Excel sees date as numbers. That is for another discussion for another time. So let's go back to our pivot table. Now, like I said, by default, anyone that contains text, once you check it, it comes under the rule here. It comes under the rule. And if it is number, you click it, it comes under value here. And this value, by default, it gives you the sum. Now, there are different values you can calculate here. You can get sum, you can get average, you can get other percentages and other things. We'll be seeing some of them. But let's quickly find out how many are the companies actually submitted their data. You see, I simply clicked, and then the supplier header dropped under the suppliers here. And right on my left here, I have the unique companies. And you can see there are 15 of them. As you can see right under here, there are 15 of them. Okay, so this is what pivot table helps us to do. Assuming you have a consolidated data that runs up to millions. By the way, I think the entire row, we have about 1,480,000 something. 1,400,000, let's get to the end. Let's get to, okay, this is the end of the sheet, of an Excel sheet. 1,048,576 rows. Okay, so if we have a record, I mean a data sheet that has over 1 million, and they want you to identify how many unique entries are there. With pivot table, it's just one click, just like we have done, dropping your pivot table and then bringing this here. It has automatically identified how many unique suppliers that came or submitted their documents. Okay, now our next question is, how many did each submit? For how many months did each submit? So we can come over here. For each time they submit, they appear. So remember that I am going to, this is a text field, so I'm going to drag it and drop it here. And once I bring it here, by default, it is showing you the count, how many times it occurred. So I'm dragging my suppliers here under the field, the value field, and I drop it. It's telling me that this one submitted 45 times. So these are about 45 months. While this one submitted for 44 months, this one 42 months, 42 months, and then the total is 668. Okay, so if we go back here, whether the thing equals 668, okay, of course, yes. So if we click here, this is the number of times. I'm going to select all of them. And then right under our this thing here, we have below on the bottom of my screen here, count is 668. So that's what pivot table helps us to do in a very quick fashion. Okay, so this is what we have. Now, assuming the next thing we want to discuss is the sum of the values. The sum of the values. So the likely values that we can get is, let's say the number of the other values. Now, let's find out if we are interested in knowing for these companies, what was the total value order that they executed between 2017, January, and September 2020. So assuming we want to check that out, we need to do the value order. So I'm going ahead to click. Just clicking and not dragging is bringing the sum of order. So this is in pounds. Okay, so this is about 1.2 million pounds for this one. So in a jiffy, pivot table has helped you to get the number of times, how many times did each company submit their documents for your assessment, and what is the order value for this period. So this is unique for each company. And so this is the same thing you continue to do for other values that you want. At this point in time, I'm going to pause and then get feedback from us if there are questions. Okay, so I would like anyone who wants to ask questions to raise hand, and then we can call the person to unmute and speak. So we are going to use the next 8 minutes to entertain questions. So the floor is open now, please. You may also feel like sending the chat. You can ask your question through the chat box. Please, if you don't have question, maybe just to let us know that you are following, can you send your chat, say you are following? No question. Okay, thank you. All clear so far for me. Thank you, Ndim. Manaye is asking if we can analyze multiple data elements at the same time. Yes, you can analyze as many that are available. We are going to be doing some of them. We are going to analyze the entire data that we are interested in. Yes, my friend Njalo, yes, it's very, very important. What we are going to do is we will share this, share this file so that you all can use it to practice. Okay, Erickson, sorry to hear you joining late, but it's good to also know that you are following. Thank you all for your comments. Yes, you know, we are currently live on YouTube. And so the recording will be there for anyone who wants to review. And you can also follow the steps once you are reviewing them. And we will also encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Once in a while, we release tutorials. You get notification for any new video that we release. Okay, so we are continuing. Okay, I think there is this. Okay, I've been analyzing inventory for the past 3 or 4 months, and I couldn't know how I could bring units of items I'm analyzing, as they are crucial in the analysis. Okay. Okay, Manaye, I'm not sure I understand what your question may be. I understand you say you have difficulty bringing the units together. Maybe in the next 20 minutes, we will break again. Then you can, okay, let me say, if you can send your this thing to this email, so that when next we are resting, I can have a look at what you are looking at. Since your mic is not working very well, and I will need to understand all the problem is fully, so that I can address it. Okay, so that is the email that you can send to hpdg@havron360.org. So either you send me the data or comprehensive explanation of what you are experiencing and what you really need to achieve. And then we can start from there. All right, so my friends, these are our interests. So we are going to be using this to work further. Our interest is to look at the values of this for each company and see which one that falls within our criteria. Okay, so I am not going to remove, what's it called? I will allow everybody to mute themselves, but please, let's not allow our mic to distract us. Okay, so I'm going to delete here so that I don't have any data here. And this is also what we are going to be doing now, is going to address the question that our friend asked, whether we can do multiple, analyze multiple data. Yes, oh, that's what we are going to be doing now. So what we are looking at now is to see the number one is the lead time. The lead time. What is the average lead time for each of these suppliers? Now, this count is not really helping us, so we don't need it. So we'll remove it. And so what we can do is just to click our table here, bring back this, and then we are going to remove this count of suppliers. So I'm clicking and dragging it away from here and throwing it away. And this remains. Are we interested in the sum of the value orders? Maybe not, maybe yes. So when we start looking at each of these components, then we will know. So for the fourth one, the very first one, we are looking at the lead time. I don't need this for now, so I have removed that. Rather, I'm going to bring my lead time. Okay, so my lead time is here. So I bring it here. It's giving me the sum. So what this sum means is that for all the companies, all the supplies they made, January, February, the lead time for their January, they added it to the lead time of the February, they added it to that of March, and so on and so forth to get this total. But of course, this is not what we are interested in. We want to see the average. We want to see the average. So what we need to do is, there are two ways to do that, either from here or you come over here. So let's come over here. You see this icon that there is a drop-down list. So I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to my value field settings. So I'm going ahead to click it, and this pops up. Now, over here, I have my average. So I'm going ahead to click average. And of course, you see it's average lead time. So I'm going ahead to click it. And then it has given me the average for each of the organizations. Now, when we look at this, it looks as if there is none that is less than here. They are all above 60. They are all above 60. Now, I'm taking us back to the main sheet, the suppliers sheet now. Because for this supplier sheet, they are arranged individually. Okay, so this is our lead time for Alpha. I'm going ahead to select all this lead time for this Alpha because this is what they submitted. I just want to be sure that what we have on the pivot table is the same thing here. So I have this, I've selected all of them. See the average here. I have 125.3555 and so on and so forth. Let's see what we have here. For Alpha, let's see, we have 119. Now, the reason why this is 119 and the other one is what did we get? The other one we got here is because these things are changing. They are changing. So the value here has also changed. So each time we perform any operation, the value changes. So I'm going to fix, because this is where we drew our pivot table from, I'm going to fix this so that here, instead of having this run between on my formula bar here, I will have the actual number. Okay, so I'm going ahead to Control-Shift-8. I've just selected the entire table, just the entire table. And I'm going to right-click on the frame of this, my selection. I'm placing my cursor on it, on the frame. I'm right-clicking and dragging it out a bit, still holding and bringing it back again to where I want it to remain. and I'm going to release my right mouse, and I get these options. So I'm going ahead to click copy here as values only. The moment I copy here as values only, these ones will just be the only values and no more rand between. Remember, I showed us that each of these values were generated using the rand between function. So I am going to drop everything here as value now. So I'm dropping it as value. And if I click here, it's no longer rand between, it is just the numbers. The same thing here, the same thing here, the same thing here. So now now that I have fixed these numbers, I have updated, it's like I have updated this table from where we generated our pivot table. So I'm going ahead to select for, okay, no, this is not for alpha. Let's apply our filter here, and I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose for alpha here. I'm going to choose for alpha here, then select the entire alpha data. Over here, I have 113.6888. That is the average. So I'm going back to my pivot table. This is what we have. So I'm going to refresh this pivot table. Remember that we generated this pivot table from there when we had not fixed it. It was randomly generated. So we did the first one. So what I'm going to do now is, now that we have fixed this, so the values here are going to be constant. The values are here are going to be constant. I'm going to refresh that pivot table so that it can draw fresh and updated data from this table. Remember, our value here is 113.688. So I'm going ahead to click here. Okay, I'm actually looking at, someone just asked a question. Seems like pivot table only performs analysis as a group. That is, it groups all the suppliers and computes a statistic, or is it possible to have the mean LT for all the suppliers, for all the supplies? Well, for pivot table, you are looking at a header. You are looking at a header. So if you are looking for each of the supplies, yes, that means you need to look at, for each company, you itemize each supply. Whatever you have on your table, you can analyze. Whatever you have on your table, you can analyze. So if your analysis is looking at the lead time for each supply, then your header, your table will see, we have a header called supplies. And then for supply number one, you have the time that the order was requested for, the time it was submitted, and then you can now calculate the lead time. The time you place the order, the time you receive the order, then you'll be able to calculate the lead time for each of the supplies. So everything depends on what you want to analyze. That will give you an idea on how you are going to prepare your pivot table. Valeria, I hope I've answered that. I would like to also hear your feedback on the chat. Okay, so like I was saying, I am going to refresh this table so that it can pick the updated values for our average lead time. So right here, I have selected my pivot table. I'm coming to my pivot table analyze. Over here, I have my data here. So I'm going ahead to click refresh. You can click here or you can click here. So if I click here, you see it has refreshed. It has gone to pick the current data from the table because the table is updated. So over here, we have 113.688, just like we saw over here. Was it here? Yes, we selected here and then we got that. Okay, so this is the first thing that we wanted to do. This is our mean time. So from this table, we can see that none of these organizations, none of these suppliers met this criterion. Again, let's look at the mean processing error, which should be less or equal to 10. So again, I'm clicking on my pivot table to activate this panel. And I'm clicking on my processing errors. What it has displayed here is the sum. So it's adding all the various errors from the data to give us this as January 2017 to September 2020. But our concern or our interest is on the average. So again, we click here, go to our value field settings, pick our average, okay it, and then it gives us this. So you will see that a lot of them, is there anyone now that is, there is none again, that is less than 10%. These are all above 10%. Okay, again, let us look at the table, our main table for the average. So here we have our average here. For alpha, let's see, selecting all of them. The average is 52%. You can see here for alpha company. Let's see it here. This is 52%. We can convert this to percentage. Okay, so let me take time now to explain how we can convert this. So I am going to right click inside here and I'm going to format my number. Then I'm going to format this value to percentage. I'm going to format it to percentage and click. Everything brings back all my values to percentage. So that's how easy and simple it is to analyze with a pivot table. Again, let's look at our order fee rates. So we are looking at order fee rates, which should be equal or greater than 90%. Now, we are going to introduce a calculated field. A calculated field is a column that gives you values for a calculation that you need to derive using the given parameters. Now, when we look at our table here, what we see is total order, items requested and items supplied. So we are looking at this, for this supply, what was the value for this? What was the order fee rate? I requested for 955 items and you supplied me 500, sorry, I requested for 9,555 items and you supplied 5,102. So I'm going to use this to calculate order fee rate. This is not given here, and I do not want to come over here and do it, but I want to do it right here. So what do? I come over to this point again, my analyze. I'm going to come under my calculations here. Look at my fields, items and sets. I'm going to click this and I'm going to get my calculated field. So I'm clicking this and it's coming here. What do I want to give? What name do I want to give it? So I'm going to get calculated order field rate. And what is the formula for this? The formula is items ordered. I will insert item ordered minus item supplied. I add it. So if I have, if I requested for 50 and you supplied 25, the order fee rate is 25%. So our rate is expressed in percentage. Okay, so it's going to be sorry, no, I think the calculation is number of the okay, it's supplied, yes, item supplied divided by item ordered. So this is the order fee rate. What was supplied over what was requested for. So that is my order fee rate. Okay, so I'm going ahead to add this. Okay, and automatically it is here for each of these companies. So I can go ahead, click here, and convert this again to percentage. And let's use 1 decimal point, please. So I okay this, and it comes to this. So when we look at this again, this is the sum, and it looks as if these companies, none of them was actually performing very fine. Let's see here. Let's see they actually did not do very well, though. Okay, so they didn't do very well because none meets our 90% benchmark. So we say they must reach 90%. Okay, so at this point, I am going to refresh. I'm going to do something else and then refresh. And that thing is, I want to assume that we made error somewhere. Otherwise, these organizations, that none of them was able to fulfill up to 90% order fee rates is questionable. And so it calls for us to also look at internally and say, did we make any error? Okay, so we can come over here. This is our data. Now, let us push this one up. Let's push this one up so that it can come very close to this one. Then we might also get above 100%. So I'm going to select the entire 600 and something. Okay, so let me just remove this, my filter here. Okay, so I'm going to select every one of them. I've selected every one of them, and I'm going to use a round between, that same round between figure function. So I'm going to say this is equals to round between, let's say, since this is 9,000 plus, let's get 7,000 as our minimum up to 10,000. And then I'm going ahead to hit this. At least by now, we should be able to get up to 90% or thereabouts. So I'm still going to fix this. I don't want this round between to be occurring. So remember what we did last time. I've selected where I want to fix. I am going to point at the frame of my selection. I'm going to right click, hold, drag it out, and bring it back again, releasing it. And I'm going to copy here as values only. So once I do that, here will change from function to the actual values. All right, so we have that. And then let me go back to my pivot table right now. And then I'm going to refresh this. so that they can fetch the new data. So I come over here, refresh. All right, so I've refreshed. Okay, so it has picked from the data. This looks better. So we have some few companies here hitting 90%, 90%, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I simulated this data so that we can also know when to check internally if we were the ones that made error. And if we were the ones that made error, we have rectified it, and then we can come back to our pivot table, command the pivot table to go and pick the updated data from the main sheet where we got that from. And so the last thing that we will be looking at now is the freight burden. And we said that the freight burden is the cost, that's the cost of transportation, the cost of freighting with relative to the total order. Let me look at that definition again. So the expressed as the proportion of the freight cost to the order value. Freight cost to the order value. All right, so what we need to do now is to go to our calculated field again and get this is our calculated field. Remember, under the pivot table analyze. So we are going to get freight burden. So here we are giving this calculated field, and so we are naming it calculated freight burden, and it is defined as the cost, which is this. So if you are going to insert your formula, the field is either you click here and insert here, or you double click. So in the first instance that we looked at, I clicked and inserted here, but now I am double clicking. And so the freight cost all over the value of the order. So I'm double clicking this and it gives me that. So I've added this, I okay it, and automatically it comes to this point. So this is our calculated field burden. Now, what is the unit of this field? Excel, what we have done now is showing us is in monetary value. No, it's in percentage. Okay, so we are going to right click again. You will notice that I didn't come over here to, here's my home here, to come over here and do the things I'm doing. No, remember I told you that we are dealing on two environments. So there are situations that is best to work with the pivot table environment, like changing your numbers, your formatting your numbers, and so on and so forth. That is why I am choosing here directly. Okay, you see that there is a difference. So if I were to Control 1, you see these format cells is different. Look at the way the thing is. This is the Excel. This is the Excel environment, the spreadsheet environment. Let me escape. And when I open here to format my number format, you will see that the other items are not here. This to tell you also that the formatting that you are applying is within the pivot environment. Okay, so our interest is here, percentage. Okay, let's leave it at 2 decimal places. I click this, it has converted it. Okay, so we say that it should be less or equal to 2%. So almost all of them have reached this. Okay, so let's do one more thing. Assuming I come back to this point, I'm doing this, I say, let me remove this. Let's just get 0 decimal place. Okay, okay, I'm actually supposed to be all of them. Let's see. Sorry. 0. so that we can know those ones that are, okay, so this one is 1, the rest are 2, 2, 2. Okay, so we've been able to use pivot table to set up values for each of these supplier. And then we can begin to look at other features of Excel to actually identify which ones meet those criteria. Okay, so this is where we will end today's session. So we are going to entertain questions, and then we may decide to fix time when we can meet and then proceed further on what this series holds for us. Okay, so thank you all for listening. It's now time for us to get your feedbacks and your questions. Okay, somebody, I couldn't make it earlier due to unavoidable commitments. So, okay, yeah, like we said, we are live on Facebook. So it is available on our channel. So just subscribe to our channel and then you can have that. All right, so we are open for questions now. You can raise your hand to speak or you can ask questions. And if you are just good to go, just tell us you understood everything so that will be our feedback. So thank you once again.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Yeah, this is Fonye Delphine from Cameroon.
Okay.
I just want to say that thank you so much, sir, for this privilege. It's really wonderful. I really learned a lot, and I hope to really subscribe to follow up and know more better, because this is just something that I'm seeing you, and then it has really opened my mind, and I'm looking forward to really do this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much too. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So what we will be doing is I'm going to share this file And I'm going to ask you to do some calculations, and then you can submit to us back, and then we will look at it and provide any feedback that we deem fit. So we appreciate your time, we appreciate your patience, your contributions, your feedback. Those feedbacks are quite motivating and encouraging. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, sir. And same to you. Okay. Looking forward to the assignment.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate the time. This is really helpful.
I wish to know if you're going to send it through email.
Yes.
Okay,
Everyone that is on this call registered through an email, and so we'll send it through those emails. You receive our reminders, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are going to send them through that same email in a couple of minutes or an hour from now.
Okay. That's fine.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Can we sign out? Looking forward to the next session.
Hello. Hello, please, when is the next session? Hello.